Hello people, and welcome to another tier list. Today we're doing starters. This is a quick look at starters. I know this is my third sort of filler video in a row. I'm still making scripted videos, it's just they take a while. I actually forgot to label the tiers on this, so I'll do that while I'll explain how this works. So obviously it's a tier list, but don't take it too seriously, because things like this change all the time. My taste in Pokemon, it's based on vibes, not competitive performance, obviously. And I'm not just judging them as Pokemon designs in isolation, but also how good they work as starters, because I feel like by now we have a pretty good idea of what a starter is supposed to look like, and some of them don't quite adhere to it, so there's a certain expectation of what a starter might look like, so that'll also play a part in this. But most importantly, don't take it as my definitive opinion on these Pokemon, because it might change. And I've completed this tier list already, so you don't have to, wait for me to decide on all of my picks. It's just, I'll reveal it to you as we go. So starting off with the Kanto starters, we have Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is just great. I don't think people would deny that. There was a time when Bulbasaur was kind of the less liked one, and even now maybe a lot of people prefer Charmander and Squirtle, but Bulbasaur is no longer considered the lesser of the three. I feel like we moved past that, and we kind of appreciate all three Kanto starters pretty equally. Ivysaur is also great. I think this line from Bulbasaur to Ivysaur to Venusaur is, hold on, I have them here. I think they're, kind of the best way to showcase the concept of evolution in Pokemon, because you have the bulb, then it blooms into a flower, and then it blooms further into a bigger flower, and also the animal gets bigger. So it's a good way of showing to people what evolution is, which makes sense in Gen 1. But Venusaur is actually the one I love the most. Right now, it's probably my favorite Kanto Pokemon. I just love Venusaur a lot. Like, I know it's not a looker. It's not, it's not exactly cute or pretty, but I just like the design. I think it's iconic, and I think Game Freak would agree with me, because they picked Charizard and Venusaur to put on the covers of the first Pokemon games, Red and Green, and then they kept them for the remakes. And I believe in an interview or some kind of external source, they said that they liked those designs so much that they decided to feature them on the cover. So I think Game Freak acknowledges how cool Venusaur is as well, even though perhaps it's not as popular as Charizard or Blastoise, at least not in the West. But yeah, I just love Venusaur. It's cool. I love the colors, the lighter bluish green with the green and then the pink. It's very tropical, very appealing. Right now, there's not that much to talk about in terms of concept for these Pokemon, because Pokemon only started having crazy concepts and real-life inspirations later on, I think, after Gen 4. So, I'm judging them as Gen 1 Pokemon. They're a little bit more shallow in terms of inspiration, but they're still iconic designs. And then we have Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur it's okay. So, since I love Venusaur, I also love Mega Venusaur, because it keeps all of the things that I like about regular Venusaur, but I just think it's not that great of a Mega, because it doesn't change much. It just kind of arbitrarily adds more details. It doesn't expand on the concept in any creative ways, so I don't think it deserves to be more than okay, because it's a Mega. A good Mega would do more. Even though it's a good design by itself, I don't think it's a good Mega, so it just goes in okay. Next up, we have Gigantamax Venusaur, who I adore, so it goes in awesome. I think it's everything Mega Venusaur wasn't, because, Mega Venusaur, like I said, it doesn't really expand on the concept, but Gigantamax Venusaur kind of does, right? It doesn't quite add anything new, but it makes the flower bigger, and it droops downwards in a way where it kind of looks like a bowl cut or even an umbrella, and I just think that's cool. Right, I mean, because it takes something that was already there, but with a fun twist on it, and I just like the size of it, because one of the appeals of Venusaur for me is that it's quite big Pokemon, right? It's this lumbering beast, and when it's a Gigantamax, it's way bigger, and the features are also more exaggerated. It's quite terrifying, and I like it. It's silly, you know, the flower covering it like this. It's silly, but also kind of cute and charming. I don't know, I really like it. And I like the lime green eyes and other features. Then Charmander, it's good. Again, it's not very creative. It's kind of just a lizard with a fire on the tip of its tail, but it's Gen 1, so I'm gonna give it some leeway. It is really cute, so it does have that appeal to it. I wouldn't say it's a bad design just because it's simple, but to me it doesn't do it doesn't blow me away in the same way it does other people. I'm not as attached to it, but it's still cool. But even though I just said that, I love Charmeleon. I think it's awesome. I know it's kind of a contradiction because it's not really any more creative than Charmander, and I just talked about how Charmander, it doesn't do all that much for me relative to other starter Pokemon, but Charmeleon does. Why is that? Because it's not any more creative. But I just like the proportions more. It reminds me a lot of Agumon, and I love Digimon. I love the big claws because Charmander has tiny arms, and then Charizard's arms are also pretty small relative to its body, but Charmeleon has big claws, and it's quite different. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if Charmeleon had a split evolution, where instead of focusing on flying and developing wings, it focused on the claw aspect of it, and it fought by slashing and stuff. That's something that only Charmeleon has in this line, the big claws, and I like big claws. And there's the fact that it's red. I mean, it's kind of random because, you know, Charmander and Charizard are both orange, so why is Charmeleon red? But red just so happens to be my favorite color, so it's got that going for it. I just think it's a charming design. It's literally just personal preference. I can't really back it up much. I just like it. Then Charizard is good. I think it's probably the least creative of the final evolved Kanto starters, because it kind of is just an orange dragon with the flame, but at the same time it's super iconic. I know a lot of people hate Charizard for, getting too much exposure compared to their favorite Pokemon. Maybe it's a bit overrated considering it's not that interesting of a design, but it's an iconic Pokemon design. I can't really blame them for taking something classic and using it for marketing or giving it new forms in other games. Also, Charizard's forms, people say, oh, Charizard is getting too many forms, but Charizard is a very bland design. It's kind of a Pokemon that benefits from getting forms, which I'll get to in a second. Because both Mega Charizard and Gigantamax Charizard are a lot better than the original. I'm not saying that, you should just give forms to Charizard and not give any to obscure Pokemon, but some Pokemon already have good designs, you know what I mean? But Charizard is kind of outdated, and even back then it was pretty uncreative, unoriginal. So I'm kind of glad it has all these forms, and I think both Mega Charizard are great. I used to like Mega Charizard Y more. I like that it looks a little bit more intelligent, I think, than normal Charizard, just because we're used to associating human-like facial features with intelligence, because we're humans, we're conditioned to see it like that. And normal Charizard looks more like a beast, whereas Mega Charizard Y looks a bit more intelligent because it's got a more expressive human-like. When I say human-like, but not like the face isn't shaped like a human face, but the features are expressive in the same way as humans would be, so it looks more intelligent, which I like. I tend to prefer Pokemon that look intelligent than just beast Pokemon that just kind of look like they be barbaric. Not all the time though. And then Mega Charizard X is literally just fan service. It's a dragon type black and blue Charizard. But man, I can't blame it because it's cool, right? It doesn't have a crazy concept behind it, but it's just cool. Rule of cool. Who wouldn't like a Charizard that has blue fire and has also black body like the shiny, right? Not having a creative concept doesn't really drag a Pokemon down if the design is really appealing, and Mega Charizard X is appealing, But Y looks like like in further evolved Charizard, whereas Mega Charizard X perhaps feels more like a Charizard of a different type. It could pass for a regional form, but I like both roughly equally. I think I prefer X a bit more, but they both going great. Now, Gigantamax Charizard, I think is awesome. I think it's the best one. It diverges from the usual Charizard look quite a bit, because the proportions are changed, as is the case for most Gigantamax Pokemon, and there's the fact that it doesn't have the wings anymore. They're just kind of a made of fire. I mean, there's still wings, but it changes the silhouette and the vibe quite a bit, because they're just made of fire, in my opinion. But I think it's awesome. Again, rule of cool. It just looks really cool. It reminds me of Kaiju, because that's probably partly what Gigantamax designs are based on. I mean, Pokemon originally were partly based on various Kaiju. But I think it's a good twist on a classic Pokemon that feels kind of bland, and you're making it cool. My gripe with it is the same gripe I have with all Gigantamax Pokemon. They're locked behind a very specific moment in gameplay, because not only are they only in Sword and Shield, but even then Dynamax isn't one of those features that you can use anywhere. You can only use it for gym battles and special story moments, so you don't get to look at them much. And on top of that, Gigantamax designs are harder to obtain, because you can't find a Pokemon in the wild that can Gigantamax. You either have to give it soup in the DLC, which is hard to make because you need mushrooms for it, or you need to get one from a raid. So they're hard to get, and even if you do get them, you don't get to see them much. So for most people, you only really get to see this in the fight with Leon, which is brief, but it's also climactic, because Leon is supposed to be the ultimate champion, right? So of course he'd have a special Charizard, because Charizard is the Pokemon. Charizard is John Pokemon, sorta, kinda. Yeah, I like it. I recently got a figure of it, and it's cool, like a statue. Squirtle, this might get me in some hot water, because I think it's just okay. Again, when this tier is labeled okay, but it's not so much an okay, and it's more of an okay, you know what I mean? Like, can you hear the difference in tone? Like, it's not me saying eh, it's me saying it's fine, you know? Doesn't mean I dislike it. I don't even know how to explain this. It's just a little unappealing to me. Like, I know it's supposed to be cute, and I see the cuteness, but it feels a bit like a manufactured cuteness to me. Like, it feels like mascot cuteness, which I guess applies to all starters, but for Squirtle, it's more apparent for me for some reason. Like, this feels like something that a big company is telling me is supposed to be cute, rather than something I naturally find cute. I think they got better at making cute Pokemon later. Also, I don't know, it just kind of looks like a bald baby, right? I mean, obviously, a turtle, it's not gonna have like a full head of hair, but something about the shape of the head is very humanoid, and the baldness kind of makes it look a little weird, maybe. Again, not unappealing completely, it's just not my thing. I don't know. I can't explain it much. I can't really justify it. It's just not my thing. But then Wartortle, I think, is great. Yeah, it goes in great. It has some of the same design features as Squirtle, obviously, because it evolves from Squirtle, but it fixes the weird bald head by giving it the fluffy ears. Well, I don't know if they're ears, they're more like fins. So that kind of fixes the head problem. It has a slightly longer limbs, maybe, or relative to the body, because normal Squirtle has tiny limbs and a big shell, but Wartortle's shell is smaller in comparison, so it looks a little bit more mobile. And I also really like the fluffy tail. I like this trope. I know it's based on a turtle from Japanese mythology, or folklore rather. So obviously it's not something that Pokemon came up with, but I think it lends itself well to a Pokemon design. Terrapagos in its Terra form also has fluffy tails. Turtles with fluffy tails is just cool. So yeah, I don't know. I also like the personality for a similar reason to Charmeleon, because it looks kind of scrappy, right? Like, it looks like it would, wrestle with you, but still diminutive enough that it's still cute. it's got that Pikachu effect where it can be cute and cool at the same time. I think they're some of the best middle stages because often first stage starters are cute, the fully evolved starters are cool, but the ones in the middle are a bit strange, right? But these two, they're perfect because they're in the middle between cute and cool, and I think that gives them a special appeal that their other evolutionary family members don't have. And Blastoise is good. It's my least favorite of the three Kanto starters. I know we're used to Blastoise because it's such an iconic design, but if you think about it, the cannons are really weird. Like, it's kind of an un-Pokemon thing to do, to just have a mechanical thing on a Pokemon with no justification. Like, it's not a steel type, it's not some kind of robot like Genesect or Magearna or whatever. It's literally just an organic turtle that has cannons for some reason, and it doesn't look bad, but I'm just pointing out that it's very un-Pokemon like. Like, if we got Blastoise now, it'd be like, wait, what? That's a weird trait to put on a Pokemon, but I don't dislike it. But I just don't think base Blastoise achieves the look the best, right? Because then we get Mega Blastoise and G-Max Blastoise, and I think they kind of do it better. I'm gonna put Mega Blastoise in good because it's still, you know, it's not so much better than regular Blastoise that it deserves to be in another tier, but I do like it more. I'm gonna use it to explain what I think Blastoise doesn't do all that well. I think the reason I like Mega Blastoise more is because it's hunched over and you can obviously picture the cannon firing, and the fact that it's got shells on its arms kind of gives it a more fantasy look to it, because it's like normal turtles don't have shells on their arms, you know, whereas Blastoise is just kind of a blue turtle, which is fine, but this feels more like a fantasy Pokemon design. This feels a bit more like an animal with one fantasy feature. You know, I've said this before with Megas, but it's the difference between executing a similar concept in Gen 1 versus Gen 6. It's going to be more polished and more Pokemon-like, because by then they've developed a style. But G-Max Blastoise is once again awesome. All three Kanto starters, their Gigantamax forms are awesome in my book. It's like... I like that it's a more saturated blue for once. That's a small detail, but I just really love the artillery shell. And it's so, you know, it's kind of scary, right? I mean, like, look at this guy. You know, if you saw this huge thing, you'd be scared. It's epic, and it has that grandiose feel that G-Max Pokemon are supposed to have. It improves on Blastoise's concept and it makes it work better, but also in a way that makes sense for its size. But at the same time, it's still recognizable as Blastoise. So I think it's a very good design. It's also, like, you know, for something this big, it wouldn't make as much sense to have a giant cannon. The cannons kind of stay the same size, but they multiply. Instead of getting... Because everyone would have... If you asked someone to design a Gigantamax Blastoise, I feel like a lot of people could have come up with, oh, it has a giant cannon now, but they did something different. They gave it many little cannons, which, you know, kind of works, and it gives it a feeling of scale. You can immediately understand that it's supposed to be huge, plus it looks like a battleship or some kind of military base or something. Good design, very good. Moving on to Johto, we have Chikorita, and listen, I'm really glad people are waking up and realizing that Chikorita was always good. I'm gonna put it in okay, and I'll explain why in a second. Again, I'm glad, you know, it's getting more appreciation recently with Legends ZA and stuff, because it was kind of an overhated Pokemon, but I still don't think it's more than okay, just because, hold on, let me find it. To me, it doesn't feel like a starter. I know this was Gen 2, so, you know, the exact descriptions of what a starter is, or expectations for what a starter should be, weren't formed yet, because it was just their second go. But nowadays, we kind of expect starters to be based on animals. It's usually a descript animal. You can tell what animal the starter is supposed to be, and for Chikorita, you don't see the dinosaur elements just yet. Like, Chikorita just looks like a vegetable with legs. And that's not a bad design, right? I mean, to be honest, it's quite similar to Hoppip, another great design from the same generation. but it's not a very starter-like design. And if you look at the beta designs for this line, Chikorita wasn't supposed to evolve into a dinosaur. It's just kind of a thing that they retroactively did. So I don't think it works all that well as a starter, but it's still cute and I love its personality. Maybe I would have liked it more if it just had a bit more of a snout. You know, like I kind of... It's a little off-putting how it's just a smiley face on a cylinder. I don't know. I mean, like, again, there's other Pokemon that are like that, but you have different expectations from a starter. So I don't dislike it by any means, but as a starter, it's just okay. Then Bayleaf, like a lot of people, I like a lot more. I think it's awesome. It keeps the same kind of cute personality as Chikorita, so you're not losing anything on that front. But it's a more well-rounded design. The shape of the body is a bit more well-defined. You can tell what it's supposed to be. It's a dinosaur. And the features develop naturally from Chikorita. Like the leaf becomes a little bit sturdier and sharper, and the seed things on its neck, whatever those are, they become enlarged. You know, it's a good progression from Chikorita to Bayleaf. Also love that in the anime. It's just a really good classic Pokemon design. It feels very Gen 2. I can't help but love it. Then Meganium, I like a bit less. Like a lot of people, I prefer Bayleaf over Meganium. But I still think Meganium is good. A lot of people, I feel, love Bayleaf but kind of hate Meganium. I think Meganium's good. Like, again, it's a bit simple, especially for a starter, and it loses some of the appeal that Bayleaf had. I think I prefer the leaf over the antennae that Meganium has, but it still keeps that cute and appealing personality throughout that line. Like, I'm glad this Pokemon doesn't get angry, you know. It would have been kind of a letdown if we lost that. But I think it's better than Chikorita, at least. Again, it still has the same lovely personality, but in a more well-defined design. You can tell it's a dinosaur and such. And then Mega Meganium, I think, is great, actually, because it has all of the things that I just said I liked about regular Meganium. It's got the personality and the I don't know, just the goofy dinosaur-ness of it, but adding a little bit more detail. It's kind of a directionless Mega. It doesn't really have a like an obvious concept aside from more flowers, but for a Pokemon that suffered a little bit from being too empty and simple, especially for a starter, I think the Mega kind of alleviates that. I'm not sure, you know, sometimes I might prefer regular Meganium more because I like seeing that long neck, I think. But I think it's a good way to kind of update an outdated design and make it more in line with modern Pokemon, making it a little bit more complex. But some people might say it's too over the top. It's too top heavy, or neck heavy rather. And obviously it's cool that it's a fairy type now. It's Grass Fairy. I'm glad it got a second type. Then we have Cyndaquil, another popular one. It's good. I like Cyndaquil. I mean, who doesn't? I feel like even if Cyndaquil is not one of your favorite Pokemon, it's hard to dislike. What I will say about this line is that I find it really strange that they're this dark greenish blue shade, because we're so used to fire starters being fiery colors like yellows and oranges, maybe sometimes red, but this is like, it's green, you know. I mean, it still has the fire on the back, but again, it feels slightly unstarter-like. If you manage to trick your brain into forgetting that Cyndaquil is the fire starter in Gen 2, you wouldn't immediately assume this to be a fire starter because of the colors. It's not really a critique of the design, but again, for the things that we've come to understand, define a starter, Cyndaquil is maybe a little bit lacking, but it's still really cute, really appealing, and the fire turning on and off is cool, because it's like a dynamic thing about the Pokemon. It's a moving part, so to speak. I think Quilava is great. Again, it has the fire, but now it's a Mohawk too. It's got the fire on the back as a tail, but also as a mohawk, and I think that's a really clever and fun way to develop the concept. I feel like this is something they would have done now with modern Pokemon. It's like, okay, it has the fire on the back, how do we develop that in the next stage, make it a mohawk? You know, it feels almost too creative and cool for early Pokemon. But yeah, and again, it's a middle stage, and it's a bit I guess like more stoic or cool than Cyndaquil, but it's still diminutive enough that it feels cute. Again, it can be cute and cool, and I think it's the most well-rounded of the three. Then for Typhlosion, it's good. It goes next to Cyndaquil. I don't know why this is lagging so much. But it's not as good as Quilava in my opinion. It loses the Mohawk, which wouldn't have been a problem if they did something else with it, but it goes from having one fire to two fires to back to one, and it's just kind of like a collar, which is cool, but I wish there was a further thing to make it more original, and another development of the fire quills concept. And now the simple body is a bit more noticeable because the body is bigger and you can tell that most of it is just empty space, and it kind of runs into a similar problem as Meganium, where, oh, this feels a little too simple for a Pokemon, or it has too little detail for a Pokemon that's this big, but it's still cool. And also, even Typhlosion can be cute. I know it looks pretty aggressive in most of the art, but there are stills of it where it looks pretty cute. It doesn't lose out on that. But then Hisuian Typhlosion, I think, is awesome. You know, it's a bit of a jump from good to awesome, but I think it does what normal Typhlosion doesn't do, and adds another twist to the fire. Because if you look at the line like this, you have, okay, fire on the back, then the fire is on the back and as a Mohawk, and then the fire becomes ghostly fire. It adds that additional concept that develops the Pokemon that regular Typhlosion doesn't have, that being the ghostly elements of it. And also, other colors of fire are just objectively cool. Everyone likes blue fire. This is purple and red fire, which is awesome, you know. I love the little fireball things on its neck. And I love that the personality is completely different, because normal Typhlosion looks so angry all the time, but Hisuian Typhlosion is mellow, you know, it's a completely, and it's also a bit skinnier. I like, because they could have added the ghostly fire without changing anything about the proportions or the personality, but they changed that too, and I quite like that. This is a cool fantasy design. It's not just a badger on fire, it's a badger with ghostly fire and ghostly powers, and with an obvious personality, which is good. Totodile is great. I don't think that's controversial. Everyone likes Totodile. It's cute. It's blue. A lot of people like blue. I like it. It has the most complex design of the three Johto starters. You know, it's not overly detailed, but it's got the pattern on the chest, and it's got the different colored spikes on the back. It's got a little bit more detail. I feel like it feels a bit more modern. Like this, Totodile wouldn't look out of place next to modern Pokemon, whereas for Chikorita and Cyndaquil, you'd be able to tell that they're more simple. And I'm not saying simpler designs are worse. A lot of the times, I love older Pokemon because they're simple, especially Pokemon from Gen 2. I'm just making an observation that Totodile feels a bit more modern. But yeah, it's just a cute crocodile, so it's almost universally appealing, and I agree that it's great. Then Croconaw, I think, is good. Some people don't really like it. I mean, like, it's not as appealing as Totodile, but it's also far from a bad design, so I think it's just good. The caveman pattern is kind of random, but, you know, it's fine. Then Feraligatr, I'm also putting in great. For the longest time, I wouldn't have, and I think Feraligatr is maybe a bit lacking for a fully evolved starter, just like the other two in Gen 2, because it's just kind of it's not even a water crocodile, it's more like it's just a blue crocodile, so it's a little bit simple for a starter, but I've seen enough art of it to kind of get the appeal and the personality, and I think it's great. Again, I'm judging it as a Gen 2 Pokemon. But even if it came out now, I'd be able to acknowledge that it's not particularly clever, but still enjoy the personality. And I like that it's ferocious, but also kind of goofy. Again, it's that balance between cool and cute. Whereas, you know, maybe Typhlosion loses that a little bit. It loses a bit of the cuteness. And yeah, Feraligatr isn't as cute as Totodile, but it's still cute in my eyes. I mean, look at that face. Hold on. Look at this face. That's cute, right? It's cute, right? It's a little bit cute. I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say. I also think Mega Feraligatr is great. I know a lot of people don't like it. They say it looks like a toilet. They wish the hood would be on at all times. But I'm not disagreeing that maybe it would have looked a bit better if the hood was on permanently. you know, the big sail on the back, but also the big sail on the back folding over to make the head look like a giant Totodile head is too cool of a concept for it to become bad just because it's not on at all times, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you like the idea of the hood and you think that makes it a good design, then the fact that the hood isn't on at all times isn't enough to make it a bad design. Also, it adds an element of surprise, because when you first see this thing, it feels kind of random. It's like, oh, it's just a Feraligatr with the giant sail on the back. But then it folds and it forms the giant jaw with the arms and stuff, and it's like a surprise, almost like a mimic, or, you know, you see a chest, you think it's a chest, but then it's got teeth. It's exactly like that, actually. I also like that it's dragon type. I think it's a great concept. Trico, how can I not like Trico? I think it's great. Yeah. It's just an iconic Pokemon design. A lot of people, you know, from the original Pokemania era, late 90s, early 2000s, maybe they wouldn't look at Gen 3 Pokemon and think they're as iconic as Gen 1 or Gen 2, but for people who stayed fans of Pokemon, or, you know, like all the generations, Trico kind of feels like quintessential Pokemon to me. I mean, this entire line does. It's a leaf gecko. We're starting to see starters getting developed into more clever concepts, because a leaf gecko is a real thing, but Pokemon is making it literal. It's a grass type gecko with a leaf-like tail, and it's also really appealing and cute. It's cute and cool and goofy all at once. It folds in all of those aspects of a personality into one Pokemon. I think it works quite well. Then Grovyle is also great. To be honest, spoilers, I like this whole line. It looks like a Trico evolution. You can tell it's a green lizard with leaf elements, but it's made cooler, right? More aerodynamic. It feels like an evolved form. Maybe the proportion, or like because Trico is quite rounded, and that roundedness gets lost in its evolutions, which isn't a problem per se, but maybe it's a little incongruous, right, that it loses the head bumps. I'm trying to critique it, but it's just like too iconic and liked to say much about. You know, some people can't critique Gen 1 starters because, oh, it's too iconic, it's Gen 1. That's kind of me with this whole line. It's like, you know, they're just quintessential Pokemon, and Sceptile is likewise great. Well, no, actually, Sceptile, I put that in awesome, right? Because Sceptile's my favorite of the three. So some people prefer Grovyle over Sceptile, and I can kind of see why, especially if you like the head leaf. But I just love Sceptile. You know, I like the tree tail. I think it's a good Pokemon design, because you can tell what it's supposed to be, but also has just enough fantasy elements, but also not to the point where it becomes abstract. And I love Sceptile in the anime. I can't lie, it had an impact on me. Ash's Sceptile, and the way it uses Leaf Blade is just really, really cool. Sceptile's also in Pokken. It's pretty cool in that game. I don't know if it's any good, but it's cool. It just appeals to my sensibilities. And then Mega Sceptile is great. It doesn't really lose any of the things that make regular Sceptile good, if that makes sense. So it's not worse because it loses any aspects from base Sceptile. It's just I like normal Sceptile a bit more, just because the simplicity, you know what I mean? Like, it's more well balanced because it's cool, but also kind of simple. Mega Sceptile is full on cool, which is kind of what Megas are, and I really, really enjoy it for that. But I don't think it tops iconic base Sceptile. I like the fact that the tree is a projectile now. That's like super clever. I like the indentations in the leaves, and the fact that it's a dragon type. Again, it's just cool. A rule of cool. I can't dislike a Pokemon that's this cool. Also, Sceptile looks friendly. Like, it looks like it could defend you and, packs a punch, but also it looks like someone you'd like to hang out with. That's kind of the personality, which is appealing. Torchic is great. It's super cute. It's perfect Pokemon again, because it's like, it's a chicken, but it's a fire chicken and it doesn't have the wings, but it has the little tuft on the head. It's that balance between being able to tell what it's based on, but also just enough fantasy for it to feel special without making it too abstract. Then Combuskin, I think Combuskin's okay. I know a lot of people point out, you know, the shape Combuskin has, but I really don't think that's a problem. Like, I think you have to go out of your way to see it as that. I don't think that makes Combuskin badly designed. I think it's good. It's not as cute as Torchic or as iconic as Blaziken, as we'll see, but it's still good. Nothing else to say about it. I like that it keeps the head crest with the 3 tufts. Then Blaziken is great. I used to be a Blaziken hater for the longest time, but after having used it a bit, I'm starting to get the design. I didn't like how bottom heavy it was. I didn't like that the you know, it's basically wearing bell bottom pants, but also the hair on the head is kind of pointing downwards, and I thought that made it unbalanced or whatever, but I'm starting to get it, seeing it in motion. I think it's quite a great design. I understand why people like it, and it's like, it's a humanoid-ish fighting a rooster. That's such a clever idea, right? Like, compare this to something like Charizard or Typhlosion. Just one generation after Typhlosion and 2 generations after Charizard, we're already seeing way more interesting Pokemon designs, or ambitious. I'm not saying it's better necessarily than those, but it's certainly more ambitious, more, well, I am saying it's better because I put it in a tier above, but I'm talking about not how good the design is, but the creativity and complexity of the ideas. And then Mega Blaziken is also great. I think all of the problems that I did have with regular Blaziken are completely alleviated by Mega Blaziken. So it's better in basically every way. It's less downwards because now it has the feathers that point upwards. Let's have a look at them side by side. Hello? See what I mean? Like, it's got these things that point upwards. I like the fire tendril things. So it's basically just a better version of Blaziken that takes the problems that Blaziken did have and fixes them. But also, it's not different enough for it to be in a whole different tier. Like, yeah, it's better than Blaziken, but it's still a Blaziken. It's still within the same tier. It has the same kind of appeal. But I do think it's better. It's a great Mega. For once, I think it exceeds at being a good Mega Evolution. Then Mudkip, oh, what can I say about Mudkip? Mudkip's iconic. It's probably the most popular of the first stage Hoenn starters. I used to love Mudkip. Oh, well, I still love Mudkip, don't get me wrong, but it used to be my favorite, Swampert's my favorite Pokemon, but I used to kind of, you know, lump Mudkip in with Swampert and say, oh yeah, that's my favorite. In recent years, I've begun to appreciate Piplup a lot more, and I've gotten slightly oversaturated with Mudkip, to the point where I can say definitively, okay, Swampert's my favorite Pokemon, not Mudkip, but I still have a great affinity and fondness for Mudkip, especially for nostalgic reasons. I have a giant plush of it. Even my avatar is usually based roughly on Mudkip or Swampert. You know, I mean, it looks more like Mudkip, to be honest, but Swampert's my actual favorite, but I still love Mudkip. Then Marshtomp, I think it's great. I know it's goofy. It's not as well-rounded as Mudkip as a design, but I appreciate the slight awkwardness. It looks like a fun, cute guy. It's like kind of seeing a kid playing at a playground and then like face planting into the sand, where it's like, oh, that kid is so dumb, but also kind of cute in an innocent sort of way. That's the vibe Marshtomp has. It makes me want to take care of it. Swampert obviously goes in awesome because it's my favorite Pokemon. I feel maybe it's a bit less creative than Blaziken. I think Blaziken technically has the most creative concept of the Gen 3 starters, even though it's the one I like least. Swampert has all the things I like about Sceptile, where it feels like quintessential Pokemon, where it's like, okay, it's an axolotl, but it's an axolotl that, you know, is also Pokemon with, you know, fantasy features. I love the color combo of blue and orange. It's not my favorite anymore, like at all, but it used to be my favorite combination of colors, mainly blue with orange accents, and that's partly why I grew to love it when it first became my favorite Pokemon all those years ago. I also love the progression from Mudkip to Swampert, where you can obviously tell that Swampert is an adult Mudkip, but it still has some of that derpy cuteness that Mudkip has, while being a little bit threatening, a little bit cooler. Like, okay, this thing might hurt me if I'm not careful. Whereas Mudkip is just cute, but it's a good progression from cute to cool. I think it makes sense. Like seeing them side by side, that's the perfect example of Pokemon evolution. That's the perfect instance of how Pokemon evolution works. Yeah, Swampert's awesome. Sometimes I get more excited about other Pokemon than Swampert just because it's been my favorite for so long. So maybe it doesn't excite me as much anymore because I've seen Swampert so many times, I've used it so many times, but I'm too emotionally attached to it and I have too many memories with it. Plus it's kind of like an identity thing because I feel like Swampert is intrinsically tied to my identity. Everyone knows it's my favorite Pokemon. My channel is themed around this line, sort of, with the red backgrounds, but with Mudkip, Marshtomp, and Swampert. My avatar kind of looks like them. It's too me to dislike. I'm too attached to it, even if maybe other Pokemon are a bit more exciting nowadays. Mega Swampert, I'm okay with. I think it's great as a design. It's just when you have a favorite Pokemon that you love as much as I love Swampert, it'll be hard for it to receive a new form or Mega that feels like it does it justice. And in that sense, Mega Swampert let me down a little bit, but in isolation, it's still a good design, and I'm just happy that I'm able to say that my favorite Pokemon has a Mega. It's good. It's just I like Swampert. It's great actually, but I like Swampert so much that it's still not as good, but it's fine. I don't mind how swole it is, especially since it's water inside. It makes sense. It's stores water in its body. Turtwig. Turtwig's another one I used to not get for a while, but I got a plush of it a few years ago, and I became really affectionate towards it. Like, I just like how derpy and cute it is. It's like a baby, basically. Really enjoyable. I think it's great. Moving on to Grotto, I put that in good as well. I think it's a good transition between Turtwig and Torterra. I'm gonna look these guys up here in a sec. Yeah. You see what I mean? It's like, you can see features from both. If you think about it, Turtwig and Torterra are quite different design-wise. Like, they're both green grass-type turtles, but their features are pretty different. And Grotto manages to bridge that gap quite well. So I think it succeeds as a middle evolution just because of that. Now, it is a bit goofy and awkward, but in a really charming way. And it'd be hard to have this Pokemon not be goofy and awkward because it's an evolution for Turtwig. Turtwig is kind of derpy, but in a really cute way. Also, turtles, they are kind of awkward animals if you think about it. They're kind of clumsy. Well, clumsy is maybe not the right word, but they're pretty slow. I don't know if turtles are smart or not. That's not my point. It's just, it's an animal that lends itself well to kind of a goofy, funny design. I really, really love Torterra. It's awesome. It goes in awesome. It's a classic concept, a turtle with a world on its back. It goes way back with mythology and stuff, but it's just a Pokemon take on it, where it's simplified to fit the Pokemon art style. It's not like you can see like a whole actual biome on its back, but it still makes the concept obvious. It's recognizable as what it's supposed to be, a turtle with a world on its back, but in a Pokemon way, and it's very visually appealing. I really like it. Also, yeah, it's a turtle, but there's also slight dinosaur elements. It's not just a normal turtle. I like dinosaurs. It's hard to argue with a design like this. And I'll just say up front, the final evolved Sinnoh starters are, in my opinion, the best trio in Pokemon. The best trio of fully evolved starters. I think all three of them are amazing, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Chimchar, so listen, like most people, I really love Monferno and Fernape. I'm really nostalgic for them too, because Monferno is one of the first Pokemon I ever saw. Back in the day of the Gen 4 anime, I saw it on... I remember one of the first episodes of Pokemon that I ever saw that might have been my first or one of my first exposures to Pokemon was the episode where after Ash fought Paul, his Chimchar evolved into Monferno. And if I remember correctly, Ash lost, but then after the battle, Chimchar evolved, and that was kind of like a silver lining in the episode. I might be slightly wrong on the details, but that was one of my first introductions to Pokemon, so that makes this line, especially Monferno, really nostalgic. But Chimchar itself, I don't think it's that good. Like, I mean, it's not bad, but it's just okay. Because it's hard to say this, because Monferno and Infernape, I like them so much, and I think they're beloved by other people, so that love kind of extends to Chimchar. But if you look at just Chimchar in isolation, is it really as good? Like, you know, maybe you think it is, and that's fine, but I don't really think so. It doesn't quite have that appeal that its evolutions have, so it's okay. And then Monferno, like I said, I really like it, so it goes in great. It's awesome. Sometimes I feel like I prefer it over Infernape. I think broadly speaking, I still like Infernape more, but there is a certain appeal in Monferno that Infernape doesn't have. Like the blue part. I mean, like, Infernape still has that part on its forehead, but it's not blue. And I dig this color scheme and the proportions. Like, there are reasons to prefer Monferno over Infernape. I think it's one of the best middle stages in all of Pokemon, not just for starters. It feels like a complete solid design by itself. You know, if it wasn't a starter, you could just have this be a standalone Pokemon and it'd make perfect sense. But Infernape is legendary. It goes in awesome. I know I just said I sometimes prefer Monferno more, but I do think Infernape is probably better if I am to be a little bit more objective. Also, it's got a hell of a legacy because, you know, not only is it based on Sun Wukong, which in and of itself is sort of a legendary figure, which that admiration that you'd have for a character like Sun Wukong extends to an extent to other characters based on him, which includes Infernape, but also Infernape's legacy as a Pokemon, especially in the anime, is great. You know, obviously it's a good design by itself, it's a good Pokemon design, but it also has history behind it, and I kind of think that matters. Like, that wouldn't be enough for me to you know, completely change my opinion on a Pokemon, but if I already like a Pokemon and it's got historical relevance, or, you know, importance because of its legacy, then I think it makes it even better, and that applies to Infernape for sure. Maybe not so much if you didn't watch the anime, but it's still an iconic starter. And then Piplup is my favorite first stage starter in Pokemon, so it goes in awesome. It's such a simple design, because one time my friend said, oh, but it's just a penguin, and I think that's kind of it, because yeah, it is just a penguin, where the fantasy Pokemon elements are kind of minimal. Basically, it has the cape in the back and the pattern on the face that looks like a crown, and the two little buttons, and that makes it look royal, and also the fact that it's blue. But otherwise, it is just a penguin, but in a good way, because penguins are liked and iconic, and Piplup preserves all of the appeal of a penguin, but it also doesn't feel like just an animal with nothing else. You know, again, it's like, you can tell what it's supposed to be, and it preserves the appeal of its inspiration while adding just enough fantasy elements to make it feel unique and like a Pokemon. And it's super iconic. I mean, it's a mascot for Sinnoh, basically. It's definitely more popular than Chimchar and Turtwig, I'd say. Also, obviously, Dawn's Piplup in the anime is iconic. And then Primplup, I mean, Primplup, you know, I want to complain about it, because people already have. I think it's already been hated on enough, and I don't hate it, but it's obviously not a visually appealing design, right, for most people. Does it bridge the gap between Piplup and Empoleon? Well, yeah, but it does kind of just feel like an undergrown, underdeveloped Empoleon with some of Piplup's features, but they mesh in kind of an awkward way, which is fine for the purpose it fills. You know, it works, but I can't say I love it, or, you know, like, I like Empoleon and I like Piplup, but I never go, oh yeah, Primplup, in the same way I do for Marshtomp, for example, because I like Mudkip and Swampert, right? But when I see Marshtomp, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, maybe you're not quite as cool, but you have your own unique appeal, I still like you. Primplup doesn't really do that for me, but it's okay, so, you know, it goes here, next to Chimchar. And then Empoleon also kind of, I need to put it in awesome. Like I said, the Sinnoh fully evolved starters are my favorite trio. I think they're absolutely fantastic. First of all, they're good designs, just in isolation. These are just good creature designs, but also they're the first set of starters that properly start to pull in more complex inspirations, and they have this broad idea of mythology or history, because Torterra, like I said, is based on the concept of a world turtle, and Fernape is based on Sun Wukong, and then Empoleon is based on Napoleon, who is, you know, a real person, unlike the other two, but he is sort of a mythologized ruler because of his legacy. And it also feels historical because it's in the past, and mythology also feels historical because it goes all the way back. And not only is that kind of like a theme that ties all three of them together, but it's also the broader theme of Sinnoh, the past and history. I think it's perfect. I think all three of them are great, and they have just the right amount of detail, because they're the first set of starters with substantial detail. Like, if you look at these three and compare them to previous fully evolved starters, you can see a big difference in terms of the complexity of the design, but they're still within the boundaries of Pokemon, because comparatively, you know, if you look at other creature collecting franchises, Pokemon do tend to have a little bit less detail, or they tend to fold in different ideas into one single detail, if that makes sense. They're not gonna give a Pokemon three different features of design if the concept of the three can be represented through just one feature that kind of blends them together, if that makes sense. It's not that Pokemon are simple in design. It's more like they're condensed. They're very efficient. They're very streamlined with the way they design creatures, and they keep them a little bit more I guess, like, visually simple, but if you look at what goes into it, you realize it's quite deep. And I think these three are one of the first, some of the first examples of Pokemon starting to do that, because I think it was around Gen 4 that Pokemon perfected its design philosophy, and I think you can clearly see that with the Gen 4 starters. So yeah, all three of these, I love them. I have a great appreciation for them. They're my favorites. Okay, now in Gen 5, first up we have Snivy, whom I love. I think it's great. The only thing, I mean, I guess you could say about Snivy, you could say that it's not clearly defined because it's supposed to be a snake, but maybe you can't immediately tell because of the sharp nose and the fact that it's got limbs. And like I said, you usually expect starters to be well-defined animals that you can recognize, but I really don't think that's a problem. You know, it's not like it's a blob, you know, like Chikorita. Its personality is immediately obvious. You might not like smug people in real life, right? I'm not saying smugness is endearing, but in this case, because it's a little guy, a little snake Pokemon, I think it's quite endearing. You know, I would like to have a pretentious Snivy. You know, I'm sure I get annoyed at it sometimes, but you know, it's still Snivy. How can you not like Snivy? I mean, look at this guy. There's also something similar between it and Piplup. I think it's kind of the posh vibes, because Piplup's also a little bit. Piplup's more bratty than smug, but they both have like a royal theme. Piplup has the crown and the cape and stuff, and Snivy is just, you know, this whole line is royal-esque or noble at the very least. So in a way, I think Snivy is a good counterpart to Piplup. They would work as a duo. If only there was a fire starter that kind of matched that. I don't know if there is. We'll see, I guess. But then Servine, I can only think of that one clip from the Gen 5 anime, you know the one. But it's fine. It's worse than both Serperior and Snivy, but again, it's just a middle stage evolution that's supposed to bridge the gap, and it does do that, and it's not exactly awkward or unappealing. Like, it's not as good as either of its family members, but it's also not unappealing, and so I think it's alright. I mean, let's see, where did I put it? It doesn't go in, I don't know. I like it more than that. Let me just remember. Yeah, okay, I put it in good next to Grotto, because like I said, it's not visually unappealing and it bridges the gap, and that's all it needs to do. A great middle evolution would feel like a full thing in and of itself, like Monferno, but if a middle evolution doesn't do that, then it's not really a problem because it still fulfills its purpose. And then Serperior is similarly great next to Snivy. I think I like Snivy more, maybe I don't actually know. They're on par, and their vibes are quite different because, well, Snivy appears just kind of like a smug child. Serperior actually, it's looking at you like you're below it. And I think that's entertaining, and it's a logical progression of personality from Snivy into Serperior. Also, it's really, really elegant. The fact that it loses the limbs, some people don't like that, but I think it looks cool, and I think it's a really unique look for a starter. There's no other starter with quite a body type like this. I like it. Again, I like how royal and pompous it looks. Also, it doesn't. Most starters are sort of powerhouses. You're supposed to rely on them in your playthrough. Serperior is not really that. It doesn't pack a punch in the same way other starters do. And the strats that you use on it are more defensive and tactical, which maybe isn't as fun for a kid, but once you get a coil on it, it can sweep. Obviously, I don't think it's good and competitive or anything. I have no idea. But in the context of a playthrough, if you use the right strategy, you can sweep with a Serperior, and I think that's fun. It's a strategy based starter. It's more technical than others, I guess, in the way you use it. But I don't mind that, to be honest. Okay, Tepig. Tepig is good, right? Yeah. It's good. I'm not in love with it, but I also can't fault it in any way. It's an appealing design. It's a cute pig. It just doesn't do anything more that appeals to my personal taste. It's not tailored to me or anything, but I still think it's a good design. But there's not much I can say about it. Now, Embor. Wait, I completely skipped over Pignite. Wow. Pignite's okay. A lot of people hate Pignite, and I would agree that it's not exactly visually appealing, but I can't bring myself to hate it. I mean, it's like it's a pig with a leotard, you know. It's not going to be a graceful Pokemon. That's kind of what the concept is. I think it works with the concept. But Embor, here I differ a bit from other people, because a lot of people kind of hate Embor. Or at least indifferent to it. I think Embor is quite good. It's not great, but I think it's a successful design, if that makes sense. I mean, it's like a Chinese pig general, you know, and it executes that concept perfectly. It's visually appealing. Again, it's not graceful. It's not like a agile rogue type starter, but you know, it's a pig. What do you expect? It's basically like an armored fire pig, and it's got exactly the personality and design to match the concept. And I think it's great. I like the detail on it too. I think it's a Pokemon that looks ornate, but without feeling cluttered. All of the detail on it feels purposeful. And then Mega Embor is great. I'm pausing it because I'm looking at my list. Like I said, I already did this before. Maybe people don't like it quite as much as the other two Legends EA Megas. Maybe I haven't quite gauged an opinion, like the public opinion on these guys yet, because they're still new. But I think it's a really good Mega. Like, yeah, it doesn't get a new type, unlike the other two, because it already had a secondary type with fighting, but I think it makes so much sense. I mean, it's using a spear, which is like an obvious new addition. Even if you didn't memorize Embor's design features or the patterns on its body, you can immediately tell that this is an improved or a stronger Embor just because it's got the spear, so it's an obvious visual element that sets it apart, but everything else also makes sense. So, like I said, Embor is known for being ornate. Mega Embor is even more ornate, and the way the fire extends over its entire chest not only makes sense and looks cool, but it kind of forms an angry face with the patterns on its body, but it's not too obvious with the design that it does. That's like a subtle thing. You have to look at it twice to notice. I think it makes sense. It's a perfect Mega for a Pokemon like Embor. It makes so much sense. Nothing against it, honestly. Then we have Oshawott. Oshawott is iconic. Not quite as iconic as Piplup, but it's still great. I heard people call it a Piplup a ripoff, and I kind of see it because they have really similar body types and personalities, and Oshawott came out just one generation later, but it has its own appeal. Like, it's not as streamlined of a design as Piplup. It's not quite as fine-tuned. It's a little awkward, but even the awkwardness makes it cute, and I love that it uses the shell as a weapon. It's unique, and gives it like something that sets it apart, I guess, because other starters don't typically use tools like that. There are some, but it's not what you'd expect. But it also makes sense because it's an otter, and otters really do collect shells and stuff, and they keep them in their fur, so that makes sense. And then Duot is even more awesome, but still in great. Duot is probably the most well-rounded design in this line. I'm not sure I necessarily like it. Well, I think I like it the most, but that's beside the point. I think, objectively speaking, Duot feels like a more complete design than either Oshawott or Samurott. Not that those are bad, it's just Duot is very... It's a very striking character. You can immediately tell what it's about, and it has a clear aesthetic. And when I first played Y2, I picked Oshawott, and I was planning to just use it like a normal starter and evolve it into Samurott, but I grew so attached to Duot because it's such a good character design with a clear personality that I never evolved it. I kept it as a Duot, and of course that made it bad, but I just couldn't part with it, and it's still a Duot to this day. But Samurott is still good. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not that it's a downgrade from Duot. Like, if my Duot evolves into Samurott, I'm not gonna feel disappointment. It's just these two kind of have a separate appeal that is lost in Samurott, and that's fine because Samurott has its own appeal. But if you prefer the vibe of Duot or Oshawott, like I kind of do, I'd put them above Samurott, but Samurott's still cool, and the shell concept is flawlessly developed here, because it goes from one shell to two shells to having shell armor and shells that are shaped like swords that it uses like a samurai. It's a very cohesive and nice progression, even though design-wise you could argue Samurott feels a little too different from its previous evolutions, but I don't really think that's a big problem. Also, the Unova starters, I think they're really underrated, to be honest. They're not hated, I don't think, I wouldn't say, but they're not among the most discussed ones. I think people kind of consider them a middle-of-the-road starter trio. I think it's underrated. It's not my favorite, it's not necessarily one of the best, but it's a lot better than people give it credit for, I'll say. Also, I really like that all of them have a different cultural inspiration, because Serperior is French, Embor is Chinese, and Samurott is Japanese. Obviously, y'all probably know that already, but I think, again, we're seeing like a lot of concepts folded into the starters. They're way more thought out than something like, you know, Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise. There's even as early... Well, Gen 5 isn't quite early, right? It's the last game, it's the last 2D generation, but even back then we were like halfway through Pokemon's history, right? Because that was like, it's been as long since Gen 5 as the time between Gen 1 and Gen 5, but even back then there's such a big difference, or such a quick evolution in how Pokemon are designed, and I think, again, with the Gen 5 starters, just like with the ones from Gen 4, you can tell. And I think they're good. Also, they work for Unova, because Unova is based on NYC and the surrounding areas. So it's like, it's a place known for cultural diversity, so it makes sense that they would use different real-life inspirations from different cultures for the starters. And then Mega Samurott, I almost called it that, Hisuian Samurott, I think I might prefer it a little bit more, but it's obviously too similar to regular Samurott to be in a completely different tier. So basically just pick the shell design that you like more, because that's, you know, the only obvious... Oh, the beard is a little different, but, you know, if you prefer kind of the typical bony colored shells, then you like this Samurott more. If you prefer the more ornate, edgy ones, you like Hisuian Samurott more. But otherwise, their designs are very similar. So basically, everything I said about regular Samurott applies to Hisuian Samurott. Chespin, well, Chespin I love. It goes in awesome, in my opinion. I think Chespin doesn't get enough love. Again, it's not a hated starter by any means, but it doesn't get the same attention as other cute first stage starters. But I really, really love it. Again, it may be because I'm a newer Pokemon fan comparatively, right? I started actually playing the games in the 3DS era. Chespin is more iconic to me because it's a starter from that era, whereas other people, if they're already attached to something like I don't know, Piplup, for example, they might not really care much about Chespin, but Chespin is honestly just as good, right? It's just that it's newer and it doesn't get the same reputation and legacy. If I were to critique something about it, it would be the fact that the animal it's supposed to be is kind of ambiguous. Is it like it's like a chestnut hedgehog, right? But it doesn't look much like a hedgehog. Again, it's a really good design, but the ambiguity, because it's a bit like a generic mammal, maybe that's not something you would want from a starter, because like I said, you expect them to be obvious animals. But again, it's not a problem with the design itself. This more so correlates to what we've come to expect from starters as a whole. But it's not a problem in my opinion. Quilladin, I don't know. I don't know why people hate this guy so much. I think Quilladin is good. It's not great or amazing, but it's good. Like, it's not unappealing. People say it's ugly. It's not. I think it's cute. And since, you know, Chespin's whole thing is being armor, with each stage it develops or grows more armor. Why not have a stage that's just a ball of armor? That makes sense. You know, having a Pokemon shaped the way Quilladin is shaped makes sense for the concept of an armored thing, especially if it's supposed to be chestnut armor. You know, it's round. Also, the face is just cute. It looks like that one nerd emoji. I'm really endeared to it. I'll put it in good and not above, because I don't think it deserves to quite be in the same tier as everyone here. But it's not an unappealing design in my opinion by any means. It's not something that I get disappointed by when Chespin evolves. And then Chestnut. Chestnut is the most underrated starter in my opinion. I actually think it's awesome. I really love Chestnut. It was my first Gen 6 starter. The first time I played Pokemon Y, I picked Chestnut. Obviously, I have a bias for it because of that. But also, like, this is an appealing design. This is a cool armored dude, right? I don't know, it doesn't have to be your favorite. You can still like Greninja, but it's not a bad design. Maybe you could say it doesn't have enough green. I would say maybe the colors are a bit too muted because it's mostly tan, but to me it's still really appealing. And it's a cool progression from Chespin into Chestnut, in my opinion. I like the spiky shield signature move, and also the way it forms shields with its gauntlets. I don't know if you'd call them that. The green armor on its arms. And then Mega Chestnut, oh boy, it takes everything that was awesome about normal Chestnut and amplifies it. It's awesome. I feel so validated. Obviously, Chestnut got a Mega because all of the Gen 6 starters did. It's not like this is Chestnut getting special attention, but it getting anything new at all was so validating for me, because it was one of those starters that I really liked, but no one really cared about. They didn't even care enough about it to hate it. It's not even hated. People just don't talk about it. It's kind of forgotten. But then I got a Mega that looks like this. It's kingly. It feels more royal and refined than normal Chestnut, but it's still very much armored. And the fact that the shoulder pauldron things turn into spears is insanely cool. I don't know if there's a picture of it here. Yeah, see, it does this, right? How cool is that? And it's not just a random weapon it has. Not that would be a problem, but the fact that it retracts back into its design, and it becomes part of its main body and just kind of changes into that, as opposed to it just kind of holding a tool, is cool. It's clever design. It's honestly everything I would want from a Mega Chestnut, and it adds new elements without just being Chestnut but more. But it also is that, because it takes Chestnut's energy and amplifies it, but not in a way where it feels uninspired. And I also like the cape. Very nice. Also, Shiny Chestnut is my second favorite Shiny ever, after Giratina, I believe. Maybe I need to reassess that. Maybe we should make another tier list with every shiny ever. No, I'm not doing that. Fennekin. Fennekin is cute. It's another Pokemon that's hard to dislike. Yeah, I'd put it in good. I mean, maybe I should like it more because foxes are my favorite animals. And it's not like there's a flaw in its design, but I just don't think it's particularly clever. We'll see another Pokemon soon that has that problem for me, where it's like, oh, it's not that it's unappealing visually, but it's like a little too uninspired. And Fennekin is just a Firefox, which is fine. It's still appealing. The only indication that it would turn into more is the fact that the tail kind of looks like a broom, but it's not super obvious. But it's fine, you know, it's a good design. It's just again, it's not tailored to my preferences enough to put it higher in a tier. And then I would put both Braixen and Delphox right next to it. I think they're good. Man, the hate for Delphox is so forced. And I'm not saying this now because it has a kick-ass Mega. I always thought it was forced, you know. It's not my favorite starter. I can understand it's got some awkward elements in its design, but it did not deserve to be the most hated starter of all of them. This was for the longest time the least popular starter, and I just don't think it deserves that. It's good. Again, it's not one of my favorites or anything, but it's good. And, you know, it's a mage, which we'll see why that's particularly creative in a second. And then Mega Delphox is just freaking awesome, isn't it? I think it's great. And I'm gonna compare them here. It basically takes the wand and turns it into a giant broom, and also gives it 2 more satellite brooms, and it's riding on it, but not in the same way a witch would, because it's surfing on it, and I think that's awesome. Maybe it's because it would look too awkward if it was riding it normally, but it's more creative. It's a fox witch surfing on a fire broom. Right, that's such a good concept, and it's executed so well. Also, the Mega adds a new color, which makes it feel visually distinct. That's always an easy way to make a Mega feel a little bit more different, by just adding another color. Obviously, that's not enough, but if you have a Mega that has all the right added details and improved design features, but maybe you feel like from a distance it's not quite different enough from the base form, an easy way to add that distinguishing factor would be to add another color, which is what Mega Delphox does, and like most people, I think it's great. Froakie is good. I don't... It's a little awkward, but in a charming kind of way. The bubbles, the frobbles, or is that what they're called? Its foam makes it unique, because it's not just like, it's not literally just a water frog. It kind of has that element to it. Also, it looks a little bit like frog spawn. I know it's not that, and that's a lot grosser if you imagine it as that. But it's an easy way to set it apart from other frog characters. If you saw a bunch of frog characters on a screen, you'd be like, okay, this one's different because it has the foam. I don't know, I'm talking so much about the foam. I guess it's the main thing about it. But it's also, again, it's not tailored to any of my personal preferences, so I wouldn't put it above good. And then Frogadier is also good. I like it more than Froakie. But not by that much. Not enough to have it in a different tier. It's cool. Again, it keeps the bubbles, turns them into a stylish scarf, and makes the body more slender and agile, which is kind of a hint to Greninja. It's kind of like once it evolves into Frogadier, like, okay, it's not gonna turn into a big bulky frog like Venusaur. It's gonna be like a more nimble frog. But it's also fairly complete. It doesn't feel like an awkward mix of Froakie and Greninja. It feels fairly complete as a design. I think it's quite a good middle evolution because it doesn't have that awkwardness. And then Greninja, uncontroversially, is great. I know it's a basic pick, but it's just cool. It's a blue frog ninja that uses its tongue as a scarf. Maybe it's a little gross, but like, frogs are all about their tongues. I could explain more about Greninja, but it's like, everyone knows, right? Everyone knows how popular it is. I don't need to say more. But I wanted to also underline how cool the fact that all 3 of the Kalos starters are based on different RPG classes, because Greninja's a rogue, then Delphox is a mage, and then Chestnut's like a paladin or a knight, and they have those obvious archetypes that they fill. One of them is a magic user, the other one's like a nimble sort of a physical build, and then the other one, the Chestnut, is like a bulky physical build, a defensive one. So if you put the 3 next to each other, they contrast each other because they're based on different kind of RPG tropes, and I think that's very clever. And then Ash Greninja, I like about as much. There are things about Ash Greninja that are cooler than normal Greninja, but there's also things that are goofier. So I think for all of the things that it has that it does better than normal Greninja, normal Greninja has things that it does better than Ash Greninja, so they kind of cancel each other out and end up being in the same tier. Because Ash Greninja is really cool with the Water Shuriken. I like the red, even though it's a little weird that it has Ash's features, but I like the red because red's my favorite color, like I said numerous times. But it's also a little bit goofy, right? Whereas normal Greninja is a bit more well-rounded and streamlined as a design. So they're about as good. They're both really cool. But then Mega Greninja is awesome. Some people complain about it being upside down. That makes no sense to me because it's a ninja hang from the ceiling, right? It makes sense. It's not a random decision to just turn the Pokemon upside down. It makes sense for the concept, and it basically all of the cool things that I said Ash Greninja has, Mega Greninja also has them, but without sacrificing the sleekness and the good qualities of base Greninja. So it basically has the best of both worlds because it has normal Greninja's kind of a less clunky design where it's less goofy, but also with all of the cool additions of Ash Greninja, like the giant water shuriken. Also, it's got like a full ninja suit now, basically, because it's got black body patterns. And the fact that it hangs upside down is not only cool, but it's also strange in a good way. Like when you see this Pokemon, you're like, wait, what am I looking at? It's kind of disorienting, but in a good way. I like that strangeness about it. I love it, actually. So yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I just realized that I reset the page earlier, which caused the Gigantamax Pokemon to disappear because they weren't in this tier list originally. I just added them in, but it was made by this person. I added them back now. Okay, so we got Gen 7 now. We've got Rowlet. Rowlet is super iconic. It goes in great. Maybe I don't like it quite as much as the average person, or rather, I think I'm a little saturated with it. I've seen too many Rowlet memes, and I became a bit desensitized to it. But it's still a really good and appealing design. It's really cute. And you know, I love Alola. It's my favorite region. So bias. Then I think Dartrix is good. I don't... Well, no, hold on. Wrong tier. It's good, not great. I don't really get the hate. I mean, it is kind of like I guess like an emo Pokemon, but that's fine. You know, it makes sense. I mean, it evolves into a ghostly archer with a hood. This makes sense as something that would bridge the polite little Rowlet and the cool Decidueye. It's the perfect middle point, but it does have a little bit of awkwardness because, you know, it's trying to meet in the middle. It bridges that gap, but in a slightly awkward way, in a similar way to Prinplup, but it's a little bit more appealing, and it also has its own kind of deal with the fringe, right? Because if you like that, then that's something Decidueye and Rowlet don't have, so it does kind of have its own little unique appeal. Then next up is Decidueye, who once again, I think uncontroversially, I think is absolutely awesome. Hold on. Rule of cool again, but also it's cool in a creative kind of way. It's not just like, oh, it's a badass animal, you know. It's a really clever concept. So it's an owl. It's an owl archer. It's got like the hood made out of leaves, and it uses the drawstrings for the hood as the string of the bow, which it forms with its wings, because being a bird, it's got a big wingspan, and it's enough to form the bow shape. I'm over-explaining this. I could just show you a picture, because I think it's right here. See? Like this. I think that's a creative way of taking advantage of the Pokemon's anatomy, the way its body works, to give it a dynamic function and moving parts. Also, because it's an owl, and you know they stay on tree branches. That's also a good vantage point if you're an archer. So the fact that it's an owl archer isn't random, because having the high ground is advantageous if you're an archer. So a bird kind of makes sense, especially owls because they're usually seen in wooded areas, or they're associated with trees and stuff. So yeah, makes sense. It's cool. Also, the colors are very, very appealing. It's like a light brown with an orange and this nice shade of slightly colder green. And, Ghost type, it's my favorite type. I didn't mention this with the Hisuian Typhlosion, but I do have a bias for ghost types and the ghostly vibe. And most ghost type Pokemon are actual ghost-like creatures, like they're kind of incorporeal spirits, but there are a select few ghost types that seem to be normal animals or just normal living things that aren't in and of themselves ghosts, but have some kind of ghostly powers or connection to ghosts, and that would be the Decidueye, Hisuian Typhlosion, Oricorio Sensu style, and maybe like a couple others, but you know what I mean. Like it's more like they're connected to the underworld, or the afterlife or spirit world or whatever, rather than them being ghosts themselves. And Hisuian Decidueye is also awesome. I like it. I prefer normal Decidueye, but it's such a good twist on Decidueye, because it's like, okay, you take the leaves and you make them autumnal and red, but also you turn the hood into like a hat in this sort of style. It's completely different, but also still very much Decidueye. I just think it's clever. I obviously, like I said, I love red, so I like these colors a lot. I still prefer this color combo as a whole, but it's just clever. Also, I mean, I think Hisuian Decidueye also shoots arrows, right? It's got like an arrow-based move, but I think it's, at least design-wise, it feels a bit more like a scrappier melee Decidueye. So, Decidueye, you know it as a ranged Pokemon. It's an archer, but this one's like a scrapper. It'll get up in your face and punch you instead. That's why it's fighting type. I think it's a good inversion of the concept. I just like it. It's got all the things that I like about normal Decidueye, but it's a cool. It's like an opposite Decidueye. It's like when they make those cartoon episodes where they go into an alternate dimension and everyone has an inverted self, where they're the opposite of what they're supposed to look like. That's basically what Hisuian Decidueye is like. I'd love to see them interact. I think that'd be cool. And then we have Litten. I'm very nostalgic for Litten, because it was the first starter I picked in Sun and Moon. But I don't think. I think it's good, but like not more than that. I like that it's mainly black. Usually for starters, they're mainly a color associated with their type, but Litten is mainly black, just with red accents. And I know I criticize Cyndaquil for being a non-fiery color, but I would argue black works because it's neutral. It's not like it's green, But also, black is sort of a fiery color, because you have ash and smoke and stuff. And the stripes are cool because it's a little kitty cat, but it has like the tiger stripes. So it's kind of like having a pet tiger, and who wouldn't want that? And then we got Torracat and Incineroar. They go right next to it in good, in my opinion. Off the bat, I don't know. Torracat is like it's almost ideal, I guess. I feel like 80% of Torracat is something that I would love, but there's just like a slight awkwardness to the shape of its face that prevents me from liking it substantially more. I feel like if the face was a little different, it could have been like great, or even maybe even awesome. But there's just something about the face. But it's fine. It's not overly awkward. It's not like Primplup. It's just, I don't even think it's objectively awkward. It's more like a little kind of abstract thing that I happen to not like. And then Incineroar, I don't like quite as much as most people. I don't find its personality as appealing as Litten. But I do like that it's a heel wrestler, right? It's not your typical heroic wrestler like Halucha, for example. It's specifically a heel, and it's got like the fire belt, and I think that's cool because that's kind of an aspect of wrestling that isn't as obvious, right? Because unless you're into wrestling, you might not even consider the idea of a heel wrestler. Not that I'm into wrestling it, but I do know what that is. I think it's clever. to have a Pokemon based on that and use that personality and have it be a dark type, because it's cool to see it use its Z move and you know, and just act like a wrestler. It's awesome in that sense because of the personality, even though I'm not necessarily all that crazy about the design. I usually tend to not like traditionally buff body shapes. Like if a Pokemon's gonna be big, I'd rather have it be fat than buff, if that makes sense. Like I prefer Embor's body shape. But obviously it works again for a heel wrestler or a wrestler of any kind, really. Then we have Popplio's line, which goes right next to it. We're not fluctuating much with the Alola starters in terms of tiers. Popplio, it's derpy, but also in a really charming way, and seals and sea lions are some of the least controversial animals out there, because even if they're not your favorites, and they're not my favorites, they're really hard to dislike. I feel like pretty much everyone can agree that seals and sea lions are cute, regardless of who you are. It'd be odd if you were like, oh, actually I find that animal kind of gross or unappealing. That'd be like saying you don't like pizza. Right, I mean, surely there are people who think that, but it'd be an unusual opinion to have. Let me know in the comments if you hate seals for some reason, or pizza for that matter. But yeah, and then Brione is a little weird, maybe with the frills, but the personality kind of saves it. I also think the things on its head, I don't know what to even call these things. The bubble things, I think they're a little weird because they don't quite look like ears and they don't quite look like horns. I can see them turning into the pearls that Primarina has, but I think they kind of look like weird growths. So it's a bit awkward and unappealing, but the personality saves it. Like I said, it's just too cute to not like, and friendly, and also it's got a really pleasant color scheme. And then Primarina, I think, is an awesome concept. To be perfectly honest, I'm not super into Primarina's design as it is, but I think the concept is so good that it lifts the design, it lifts the Pokemon as a whole quite a bit, because it's a mermaid, or like, and they're known for singing, right? So Primarina is that, but it also has the seal elements, but seals kind of are mermaids if you think about it, because they're mammals and they have like a fish looking tail, but they have arms as well. So it's like there's an overlap between mammals and there's an overlap between seals and mermaids. Maybe that sounds absurd to you, and I'm pretty sure some of the historical mermaid sightings were people say they were probably them seeing seals from a distance and thinking they look human-like. So it makes sense to combine those things, but you're also adding the singing aspect of a mermaid, and I think that's cool. It also makes sense for seals, because seals kind of make a, maybe melodic is too much, but they make a recognizable noise. They are noisy animals. I think the design maybe tries to be a little too much, because like I said, I appreciate the fact that it's a mermaid and a seal. I think that's super clever and it makes sense. But design wise, I'm not sure if it's executed the best, because it's quite humanoid, Primarina, in the way its hair works, and just the overall body shape. It's more elongated than a seal or sea lion. It's more human-like because of the mermaid aspect. But maybe that makes it a little awkward. I'm really not a humanoid starter hater. I love a lot of starters that are humanoid, but maybe here it's a little too much of everything, because it's the seal, it's the mermaid, and the human aspects of the mermaid. A mermaid is already a chimera or a hybrid, and then it's also a seal, and it's also maybe a clown because it's got the nose, right? Maybe it doesn't mesh all of those concepts super smoothly, but the concept is still really good, and I love the way the pearls disappear from her hair, and the hair kind of splays to the sides when it uses its Z move, Oceanic Operetta, I believe. It's cool because it suddenly becomes a little bit scary. So the fact that it has all of these good ideas kind of saves the fact that maybe the design's a bit lackluster, or maybe it's not accomplished as well as it could have been, maybe if it got a couple redesigns. But you know, still cool. Good. Then we got Grookey. Once again, I'm gonna put Grookey, Thwackey, and Rillaboom right here in good. Obviously, most starters are just gonna be in good, right? Starters are, broadly speaking, good Pokemon because they need to be. They need to make the starters appealing, pretty universally appealing. So most of them will just go in good. Grookey, I think, is a really good first stage. I think the Galar starters have some of the best first stage Pokemon ever. Like, if you just look at Grookey, Scorbunny, and Sobble together, they're really good starters. But ironically, I think they have the worst fully evolved counterparts. So Rillaboom, Cinderace, and Inteleon are probably the worst fully evolved starter trio. But the first stages are really good. I'm just not like a crazy monkey person. Like if I happen to find monkeys really, really cute, Grookey could have been like a great or awesome tier, but just because it's not personally my favorite animal, it's just good. But I acknowledge that it's a really complete and appealing design. Toaki is basically the perfect evolution. It looks like a middle stage because it's a little vertical in a weird, deformed kind of way. But also that's kind of like a thing you'd expect from a middle stage. But it very obviously looks like a Grookey evolution. It's a bigger Grookey. The colors change a bit, and it gets 2 sticks instead of 1, and a bit of an attitude comparatively. So I think it's good. And then Rillaboom is maybe a little too different. I used to really dislike Rillaboom. I've grown to like it a bit more. I kind of like the drum that it just kind of pulls from inside its hair in the back. But again, I'm not that crazy about monkeys, and the hair is maybe a little too human-like. But also, it's kind of like imagine like a big gorilla that's been so sedentary that it grew vegetation on it. Right, that's a cool concept if you think about the hair like that. Like, it's a gorilla that's so in tune with nature, or it slumbered for so long that it started to grow moss or leaves on it. That's not Rillaboom's lore, but if you kind of get that imagery into your head of kind of like a jungle lord gorilla, then it starts to make a bit more sense. And I like the way it makes music. But yeah, I start to like these a little bit less with every stage. But they're not far enough apart to be in different tiers. And then I think Gigantamax Rillaboom is great, actually. Again, I'm not crazy about Rillaboom, but I'm not just judging it based on how much I like Rillaboom. I'm also judging it on how good of a Gigantamax form it is, and I think it's quite good. All of the Galar starter Gigantamax forms just roughly stay the same size, but they get some kind of giant structure around them. So something that was already present in their design grows and becomes more complex while they stay the same size roughly. So Rillaboom doesn't grow much, but its drum becomes a whole drum set, which makes perfect sense. Before, it was just like a primitive bongo, almost something you could believe a gorilla could actually use, like a real-life gorilla, but now it's like a full-on man-made drum set, like the cymbals and everything, you know. That makes sense. Well, maybe it doesn't make sense that Pokemon would form something so human-made looking, but like design-wise, concept-wise, it's a great idea. It looks cool. Like, this is just like the best drum solo ever. It even uses the leaves in its head to be able to play more of the drums at once. You know, like I want to hear this. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I said, all 3 first stage Galar starters are quite good, so I naturally also like Scorbunny. I like it more than Grookey though. I'd put it in great. I'm really endeared to it. It was the first one we saw. I remember when they showed the trailer for these guys, I was seeing Scorbunny run, and I was only seeing its legs, and I thought it was Meowth. Or some kind of regional form of Meowth, because if you look at Meowth's legs and feet, they're quite similar to Scorbunny in shape. That was kind of a random thing to share, I guess. Excuse my notification. And then Raboot is quite cool. I mean, it's supposed to be wearing a tracksuit, I think, because, you know, it ends up being like a soccer player, but if I pretend that it's a ninja instead, then I like it more. so I think it's quite good. It's also got a charming personality because it's kind of like the rebel one. Because Scorbunny's really happy, Cinderace is really happy, but Raboot's like, it's a bit more stoic. It's a bit more of a rebel. And I think that's fun. It's entertaining. And then we have Cinderace, who is unfortunately my least favorite fully evolved starter. I I'm laughing because I mentioned this in a previous video that I don't like soccer or the soccer aesthetic. So I guess I'm gonna have to crap on soccer players again. But I just think the soccer uniforms and most sports uniforms just look lame, and the aesthetic of the sports in general, with few exceptions, just like unappealing to me. When I first saw Cinderace, I just saw a static photo of it. It was like a leak, and I didn't realize it was a soccer player. I thought it was just kind of like a generic humanoid mammal, and I was like, okay, I like Lucario, I like Zeraora, this is kind of like that. And then when I realized it was like a soccer thing, I started liking it less and less. I don't like how short the arms are. Again, soccer is dumb. No, I'm being cruel. It's not like, if you like soccer, that's cool. If you're like an athlete or just like enjoy watching it, I just don't think aesthetically it's not appealing to me personally. Obviously, it's a subjective thing, but it drags Cinderace down quite a bit. But it's not just that, because I could, Raboot also like does the fireball thing, at least in the anime, kind of like kicks a pebble, but it doesn't look obnoxiously like a soccer player. Actually, I think the fireball itself, or the pyro ball as the move is called, is quite cool as a concept, and I think a Pokemon that kicks a fireball is cool, especially in a region where, because Galar is based on the UK, where soccer is huge. And I wouldn't mind that if it was a little bit less obvious, because it's like, if it was just the fireball, I'd be like, okay, I can see the soccer connection, but it's still just like a cool Pokemon kicking a ball of fire. But Cinderace looks a little too obnoxiously like one, and it's also not. It's a bit awkward. I think the proportions and some of the features, I don't really like it that much, but it's still, I don't know. I haven't mentioned this, but I really don't dislike actively any Pokemon, or at least I don't hate any Pokemon. Most of my tier list for Pokemon, the bottom tier is, I don't know. You know, that's what I put here, because I kind of see value in every Pokemon, even my least favorite ones. And I know, I'm just a shill, I like Pokemon so much that I like everything that Game Freak makes, sort of, kind of, but, I just see value even in Pokemon I don't like, and I don't tend to linger on things I don't like. With Cinderace, it's like, okay, I don't like it, so I don't like it as much, rather, so I just don't think about it. Maybe other people would linger on the things that aren't to their liking, and that would make their disdain for it fester and grow. But because I'm not interested in it, I just don't waste any mental energy on disliking it. So it's just, I don't know, just explaining my philosophy when it comes to Pokemon and a lot of other things. But like with Rillaboom, I do think the Gigantamax for Cinderace is really good. Again, Cinderace mostly stays the same, with only the ears growing, but the Pyro Ball grows huge, and it's standing on it, and it's got a rabbit face, and that's so awesome. Again, it's like a tool or instrument that the Pokemon uses, but it grows big while the Pokemon stays the same size. But in this case, it's also standing on it. It's like it's standing on the sun, and the fact that the ball is also a giant face is just cool. It's just appealing, and it's clever, and it makes sense for Cinderace. Imagine kicking this giant thing, which you can do. Imagine getting the sun thrown at you by this bunny. It's cool. Makes sense. Sobble, I also think is great. Sobble was my favorite when they were revealed, probably because it reminded me a lot of Mudkip. It's still my favorite now, but I didn't end up using it on my first Sword and Shield playthrough, because I didn't like Inteleon, because I saw it in a leak, and leaks never do Pokemon justice, so that's something I had to learn the hard way. But yeah, it's really cute. I like that it's a chameleon that turns invisible, because again, it's, I mentioned this with some other starters before, but it's kind of like a dynamic thing added to the Pokemon. It's not just the thing you see when you look at the photo of it, but it's also something it can do. Either a part of its body shifts, or it goes into a different mode almost. It's something that you wouldn't be able to represent unless you saw a video, you know, like an animation. I like that. Not that Sobble has any animations where it goes invisible, but just like the idea that knowing that it can kind of adds to it. But anyway, that's beside the point. I just think it's an appealing and cute design. I like little blue lizards. I just like little lizards. Don't even have to be blue. It's even better if they're red. And then we have Drizzile, who I actually really like. It goes in great. It's another one of those where like some people don't like it because it's too emo, but it's a good and complete design. Like, it's not emo in a awkward kind of way, and you know, and that's not even an insult. Like what's up with using that as an insult? I mean, the majority of people who call things emo as an insult, they don't even really understand what the emo aesthetic is, or the culture, or whatever. But even if this is that, even if this Pokemon does have that aesthetic, that's not a bad thing, right? That's just like an aesthetic. You know, you could dislike it, but saying something is emo in and of itself is a horrible insult, because that statement has no value. It's not saying that it's good or bad. You're just stating an opinion, because emo doesn't inherently come with any good or bad associations. Maybe you like the emo aesthetic, and then it's a good thing. And I don't even think most Pokemon that people call emo fit into that umbrella. But just for the sake of argument, if they did, that's not even an insult, in my opinion. But yeah, I like it. I like how colorful Drizzile is, because it's not just blue and yellow. Actually, it doesn't have yellow, but it's got this like lime green and purple, which is cool, because the other evolutions, Sobble and Inteleon, are coordinated. They're both blue and yellow, but Drizzile's got its own colors. I like its personality. I like its mitten paws. I like the way it crawls on all fours in Pokemon Camp. It just so happens that this is a design that does indeed appeal to my personal design preferences, so I think it's great. I like it more than Inteleon. Let's see, where did I put Inteleon? I put Inteleon in good. It's my favorite of the 3 fully evolved Galar starters. But I do think I don't have a problem with Inteleon being humanoid. Like I said, I don't dislike humanoid Pokemon, but I don't understand why it has to be quite this thin. Like, it's a little too vertical. It looks a little unnatural, maybe a little sickly, because it's almost freakishly like a line. You know, I mean, I'm pretty scrawny myself. That's not a problem, but this isn't that. This is just kind of like an odd silhouette that doesn't really play into the Pokemon's concept. If the Pokemon's concept in a way related to this, right? Like, maybe it was a Pokemon that's supposed to fit between door caps. I don't know, that's a random thing, but like if the verticality and thinness played a part in what Inteleon's concept is, then I'd understand it. But I think it looks a bit too unnatural, and the pose it takes doesn't quite help it much, because it's usually very upright. Maybe even if you kept the model and the proportions exactly the same, but made it hunched over a little bit, gave it a slightly more animalistic pose, maybe that would work a little bit better. But even still, it's still a cool lizard, and the idea of a water Pokemon that uses literal water finger guns, like it's making finger guns, but they also shoot water. That's clever, because it's a water gun and like a pistol basically, but it's like the actual fingers, which makes sense because it's a water type Pokemon. Obviously, it can create water like that. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but it's a good concept that makes sense, and it's cool regardless of the shortcomings of Inteleon's design otherwise. And then much like with the other two, Gigantamax Inteleon is great. I'm gonna show you a picture of it because it's hard to see on the tier list. It's a giant sniper tower. In Inteleon's case, Inteleon again stays mostly the same, but the tail grows super tall and forms into a tower, and it uses like a water barrel to turn its finger gun into a finger sniper rifle, basically, and it shoots even more powerful in pressurized water. Again, makes perfect sense for the water sniper concept of Inteleon. It's a good Gigantamax. Okay, now we've reached Gen 9, and we have Sprigatito, who I will sadly have to put in okay. I think visually Sprigatito is more appealing than most of the other Pokemon in the same tier, but it's just, to me, it's almost offensively uninspired, because Sprigatito, I mean, there might be some slightly more specific aspects to it that I'm unaware of, but for most people, if you look at Sprigatito, it's just a grass cat. And that's what people who aren't into Pokemon think Pokemon are. Like you're, you know, like some random person who hasn't played Pokemon since Gen 1, they'd be like, oh, Pokemon is animals with elements. Or Pokemon is almost always more than that. There's always more inspiration behind it. And when a Pokemon really does boil down to just take an animal and add an element to it, then I think it's kind of a problem. Most other starters do something more. I had a similar critique about Fennekin, and I hinted at Sprigatito when I talked about Fennekin, but at least with Fennekin, there is the broom thing, right? The broom aspect with the tail, and the fact that, I guess, like, the shape is a little bit more fantasy-like. I mean, like, Fennec Foxes do look like that, but, I guess I find it a little bit more clever in the shape language, whereas Sprigatito just kind of looks like a generic chibi cat, but with like a grass skin on it. Like this is a nature element cat, you know. I'm not saying it's like a million times worse than Fennekin, but I do think it's the least creative first stage starter, and even then I think it's okay, because at the end of the day it's still a cute cat, so it's hard for me to dislike. But Floragato is great. A lot of people like it. A lot of people think Floragato is kind of the best of all the Gen 9 starters, all stages included, and I can see why, for sure. It's got that same kind of appeal that maybe Duod has, where it's like a very complete looking middle stage by itself. It doesn't feel like just something that's supposed to bridge a gap between two other Pokemon, or something that just exists to evolve into another thing. It's got its own identity and appeal, and there's reasons to like this over the other two. The yo-yo is really cool. The pink bud on its neck turns into a yo-yo controlled by like a grass vine thing. It's really good. It's really cool. It feels very Pokemon again, because it's like, yeah, you can obviously tell it's a cat, but it's got all of these fantasy elements, but it's not just the grass. It's not just that it's got an element. It's got the yo-yo, it's bipedal, it's got a certain personality. I think it came out fantastic, even though it's just like a middle stage. And Meowscarada, for now, I will put it in great. I don't think it's as good objectively as Floragato, but I've developed a real appreciation for it, because I never hated Meowscarada or anything, but I thought the design was, again, a little awkward. I used that word a lot in this video, but again, this is unscripted. But recently, I've kind of realized that it's not too dissimilar to Greninja. And I don't just mean that they have Dark as their secondary type. Greninja was also a Pokemon that people thought was a little weird at first, because it's like, oh, it's got a tongue scarf, what's the deal with this Pokemon? It's got a weird face shape, but once they saw it in the anime and they saw Greninja in action, they understood the concept, and they're like, oh, okay, this is actually really cool. And I think the same thing kind of applies to Meowscarada. It's just that not as many people are watching Horizons as, you know, everyone watching X and Y, and it's not quite as hype in that show as Greninja was in the X and Y anime, but I feel like if more people saw Meowscarada in action, they didn't just see a picture of it, they saw it in the anime, or maybe even used it, saw all the animations in game, they would kind of get the concept. Because yeah, it is slightly awkward and weird, but it is cool. It's a masked cat magician with like and it does illusions in the same way Greninja cleverly turns the tongue aspect of a frog into a ninja scarf. Meowscarada kind of turns the sly nature that a cat would have into a tricky magician. And also magician character is cool because it's not a psychic type. It doesn't actually have magic powers. It's a dark type because what it's doing is trickery. It's doing parlor tricks that look like magic and deceiving you, and that's why it's a dark type. Yeah, I quite like it now. I think it's great. And then we have Fuecoco, who I think is good. I think maybe Fuecoco is a little too derpy for a starter. There are, don't get me wrong, there are first stage starters that are similarly goofy to Fuecoco, but I feel like the others, like Rowlet, let's say, or Oshawott, I'm looking at them on the list, they still have a little bit of flexibility. Like you could still imagine them making a slightly more fierce expression or them locking in a tense moment, but it's kind of hard to imagine Fuecoco doing that. And I think an appeal that Pokemon tend to have, not every Pokemon, but definitely starter Pokemon, is that even when they do have clearly defined personalities, you can imagine them reacting in different ways or displaying emotions or expressions in varied ways depending on the circumstance. And for Fuecoco, I think it's maybe a little too derpy. As endearing and cute as it is, the fact that I can't imagine Fuecoco doing anything other than just staring into the void, makes me like it maybe a little bit less, or it doesn't make me like it less, actually, because I like that about it. I think it's charming how much of an idiot Fuecoco is, but I think that's not what you'd want from a starter. I feel like you'd want a little bit more malleability with a starter's personality than Fuecoco offers. I guess Turtwig is kind of similar to Fuecoco, but Turtwig looks a little bit more neutral, whereas Fuecoco just looks like it's got like a big fuck ass smile, and I love it for it. I'm just saying, as a starter, if I were to think about what defines starters, I would want it to be a little bit more expressive. Well, it is expressive, but expressive with just one genre of emotions. And I feel bad for saying this because it sounds like I'm criticizing Fuecoco, but the main reason I'm bringing this up is because Fuecoco is so perfect in every other way that this is kind of the only thing to discuss, because other than that, everyone can agree that it's cute and charming and lovable, you know? There's no point in me reiterating that because everyone already knows. So I'm bringing into the discussion the things that maybe other people didn't think of, but it's not even what I predominantly think of when I see Fuecoco. When I see Fuecoco, I just think of how much I like it, you know? It's good. Then we have Crocolore. I think Crocolore is one of those middle stages that serves solely to bridge the gap. Again, I have used that term a million times in this video, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. Conceptually, it makes perfect sense because Skeledirge has a little bird on its nose, and then Crocolore has a nest, right? A bird's nest, and the egg hatches into the bird that Skeledirge has. The design serves the concept, but in isolation, it's a little random. Like, if you understand the concept of the whole line, yeah, sure, but Pokemon ideally would work well even out of context, I guess. And if you just look at this, it's like, this is a weirdly misshapen crocodile with a sombrero that vaguely resembles a bird's nest. The concept is a little too weird and out there, and while I think it's creative and I really appreciate it, I'm not sure if Crocolore by itself is like an amazing design. I feel like it's a bit confusing. Like, if a person saw it with no context, they'd be like, what am I even looking at? And context is important. You should take into account context before judging a design, but again, we're talking about starters. Starters are supposed to be a bit more universally appealing and, for the lack of a better word, marketable, and I'm not sure if Crocolore fulfills that role just because of how out there and weird it is. But I don't mean weird in a negative way. I just it's unusual. It's okay. I still think it's okay. It's not, I don't hate it, it's just like, it's a little off. And then Skeledirge, it's in good now. I used to like it a lot more. I was so excited when I saw it the first time. And I think the concept is awesome. Like I said, I love reptiles, and this is like a fire crocodile that sings. How cool is that, you know? And his Japanese name is Loudbone. That's so cool. That's objectively cool. But and you know, the concept does carry it, but I do realize that there are some something. It's got a problem that I think a lot of Gen 9 Pokemon do, where the design feels one or two design revisions away from being final. Like, if you look at Skeledirge, it kind of looks like something you'd see in like concept art, where it's like, oh, okay, this is an interesting concept, let's redesign it to make it better, but they skipped that step and made this version into the full Pokemon, because the shapes and patterns on its body are a little weird, even if they're supposed to represent or resemble instruments or I guess like a kind of attire. It doesn't obviously read as that, and the shapes and patterns are a bit weird all over its body. And there's also the fact that the skull part of it makes it look kind of bald. I really like that. If you think about it, Skeledirge has a decomposing head where half of the skull is exposed, and that's super metal. I love that. But the way that's represented in the design looks a little awkward. And the flames on the side also kind of make it look like it's got a receding hairline, which I don't think this Pokemon is supposed to. If there was a Pokemon that was based on an old man, that wouldn't be a problem, but Skeledirge kind of unintentionally looks like that, and I think it's not supposed to read like that, but it does a little bit. But I still have a soft spot for it, and I like the bird on the nose, because birds are known for singing, but also there's the semi-fictitious correlation between birds and crocodiles, where they clean their teeth, where that's just kind of a thing that happens sometimes. Other times the crocodile just eats the bird. It's a bit exaggerated in media, as far as I know. But yeah, it's good, but it's one or two design revisions away from being great. And then Quaxly, man, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know about Quaxly. It's not, I mean, it's technically more creative than a Sprigatito, because it's not just a water duck. It has the hair that also resembles some kind of sailor hat, maybe. Either way, it doesn't just look like a duck with an element. It's got like a personality and thing, but I just don't think it's an appealing design. Like, it's kind of cute, but again, to me, it feels like one of those things where it's like, oh, this is something that like a company would want people to think is cute, which is technically the case for any first state starter Pokemon, because they're supposed to be marketable, but here it feels like something that I don't actually find cute, but I can tell that I'm supposed to. Like they want me to, but I don't. But it's something that maybe like your grandma would. Like your grandma be like, oh my god, they made this cute little duck, I can't believe it. You know what I mean? But like, I'm rambling. It's a bit artificially cute. It's not appealing to me all that much. It's a little too simple. Maybe, not a big fan of it. The Paldean starters, the first stages at least, they kind of dropped the ball. Well, no, they didn't drop the ball, because they're still overall appealing designs, just comparatively. I think they're worse than the others. Whenever I say something bad, it's still just mid to me, because I love most Pokemon so much that I wouldn't even say that, you know, even for these ones that I don't really like much, I wouldn't say they're bad. They're just an I don't know, it's not my thing. And then Quaxwell is just more of that, but with the middle stage awkwardness, but this time not in a charming way. I mean, I guess it's a little bit charming with how derpy it is, but like, sometimes the awkwardness works in favor of the Pokemon, but with Quaxwell, I don't really think it does all that much, and it still has all of the things that I don't really like about Quaxly, like, oh, it's a duck with like a haircut that it wants to maintain. It's fine, but I don't know. That's why the tier is called I don't know. And then Quaquaval, I used to not like Quaquaval, but again, seeing it in the anime made me think it's actually quite good. I like Quaquaval's personality. I don't understand people saying it's too flamboyant or whatever. I mean, I think a lot of those people maybe have other reasons for saying that, if you catch my drift, but also, it's a carnival dancer. Of course it's gonna be that, you know? I don't have a problem with that, obviously. I just think certain features of its body shape are a bit weird, where it's like, it's humanoid, but they're not fully committed to making it humanoid, and they're still giving it kind of the duck butt, so to speak. and I think it looks a bit weird and unnatural. Like if you're gonna have it resemble a humanoid dancer, then just give it like a humanoid body, not this weird compromise where okay, some aspects of it are kind of bird duck like, but then it's got some random protruding human parts out of it. It looks weird. The legs are weird because they're duck legs, but they also kind of just looks like human legs. Like see how well the thighs are defined. That wouldn't be a problem if the design was fully humanoid, but like it's like giving a duck human thighs. That's weird, right? But when you see it in motion, when you see the back feathers splay out and you see it kicking around, because it's a fighting type, it's a dancer, but it uses the dance moves to fight, it's cool. And it's also kind of like a water type Blaziken, because they're both kicking birds, but also with opposite personalities, because Blaziken's all like tough and disciplined and focused, and then Quaquaval's more playful and flamboyant, which I enjoy that contrast between the two. I think it's good, but it's got some weird features that keep it from being great. And now we've reached the most recent set of starters where we don't even know their evolutions. We have the Gen 10 starters. These are the most subject to change, because for once, I don't know their evolutions, and oftentimes that kind of changes my perspective on the Pokemon. But also, they're new, and I haven't had as much time to sit on them. They've been announced less than 2 months ago when I'm recording this. Brout is sadly my least favorite. I think it's okay. Brout's design is appealing, and are they even here? Because there's like list of Pokemon in Pokedex order on Bulbapedia, but they're oh no, they are here. So Brout's design is a fairly good Pokemon design. I don't think it's a great starter design. Like if this was the Route 1 bird and it was like a flying grass type, you know, that would be great. You know, it feels in the same league as a Starly, you know, but it's supposed to be a starter. Maybe it's a little too simple for a starter. I don't know. That's kind of a rough vibe I'm getting, but like I said, they're new, so I might change my opinion on it. It is cute. It just, to me, it's too unexceptional to be a starter. Starters usually feel a little bit more special than regular Pokemon that you'd find in the early game, and I'm not sure Brout fulfills that quota. It feels a little too regular. Not like a bad design, but not special enough to be a starter. I hope that makes sense. And then Pombon I like. I think it's good. Yeah, sorry for the lag. Let me find it. Pombon, I could talk about how it's mainly one solid color and that's a little bit boring or simple, but it actually kind of makes sense because it's a big fluffy Pomeranian. You know, it's a fluff ball. It makes sense that it wouldn't have crazy details because it's all under the fur, and it still has enough. It's got the red tuft and also much like Seal's dogs. It's just I'm a cat person, but like. You can't dislike dogs, you know, they're just cute. Pombon is cute. I can see it having an evolution, a really cool evolution. I can see it go in like one of two directions. I can see it randomly become like a more locked in and cool dog, in the same way Rowlet is cute and derpy but becomes Decidueye, or I can see it be like a giant goofy dog, which I think is like better, to be honest. It'd be like a giant dog that's pretty fierce and powerful, but its personality is like dumb and cute. Yeah, it's just a cute dog. It also makes sense as a starter. This to me looks starter-like, more than Brout, at least. Let's see. Then we have Gekwa, who, listen, this might be recency bias, but to me, Gekwa goes in awesome. I love her. I think Gekwa was freaking awesome. I love how she looks like a littlest pet shop toy. I've noticed that frame 1 when I saw the reveal for Winds and Waves. It has that gene that carried from Mudkip to Sobble and now into this, and a little bit of my 14-year-old self who fell in love with Sobble but was then disappointed by Inteleon. A little bit of that kid inside me is waking up and beginning to hope again, because it's like, oh, okay, I didn't like Inteleon as much, but this is like another go, and I like this one even more than I liked Sobble back then. she's so cute, but also cool. Like again, it has that thing where like I can imagine Gecko doing different things. I can imagine it being kind of aggressive. I can imagine it being dismissive towards other Pokemon, like, oh, stop bothering me. But I can also imagine it being super cute and cuddly. And I love lizards, and I like that it's a darker blue. It's just a really good design. But like I said, there is such a thing as recency bias. Because when I see Gekwa, or any of the Gen 10 starters for that matter, but especially Gekwa, I don't just see the design, I also immediately get the thought, oh my god, there's gonna be a new Pokemon generation. And the exhilaration and enthusiasm from that might make me like them a little bit more. Like when all of that wears out, Gekwa might no longer be an awesome, because it won't feel novel anymore, basically. I'll be used to it. But I not only like the design, but there's that association between it and the excitement of knowing that there's gonna be a new batch of Pokemon, a new game, along with it. But for now it's awesome. But like I said in the beginning, none of this is definitive. And by the way, I'm not ranking the Pikachu and Eevee, the Ore starters, or the Mystery Dungeon ones. You know, Pikachu and Eevee, I do consider them starters. They are objectively mainline starters, but there's no point in ranking them on this list, because in terms of how they're designed, they're completely different from regular starters. They don't feel the same niche, and comparing them to these feels like apples and oranges. It's a redundant comparison. I might as well take Dialga and rank it, or Eternatus and rank it against the starters. Just completely different archetypes for Pokemon, so there's no point. But yeah, that's been my tier list for all the starters in Pokemon for now. Sorry that it's taking me so long to release an actual scripted video with meaningful content, but this is also kind of fun. I know it's a bit rambly, but you know, it doesn't hurt to have like a chill video every now and then. Let me know if you agree, disagree, be civil about it. If your favorite starter is one of the ones I put in the bottom tiers, that's cool. Like I love that for you. Don't feel attacked. Okay. Thank you for your time.